Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It's afternoon now, 4 o'clock. It's the 42nd CALLERLAB Convention in Springfield, Missouri. Today is the 30th of March, and the name of this session is Extended but Not Extreme Choreography at the Plus Program. I'm your moderator. I'm John Marshall from Virginia. Our primary panelist is Barry Clasper from Toronto, Canada, and our outgoing chairman of the CALLERLAB board, Barry Clasper. What did we decide, Barry? Was I going to play or were you going to play? Sounds good to me. All right, go for it.
Well, there's still more handouts at the front if anybody's just come in. See, now you've got to walk up in front of everybody to get it, though. But nobody's watching.
Our new board member.
So my handouts are not built with the idea that you're going to follow along with what I'm saying in the handout. They're kind of a bit of exposition on the theory behind what I'm going to say, and I don't really pay much attention to what's in the handout. But hopefully what I do say will be something that relates back to the handout. When you read the handout, you can kind of understand where I was coming from. So don't think you're going to follow along and it's going to make any sense. And as you can see, it's 4 pages long, close typed, so I don't really want you reading it now. I'm going to present some examples, and neither of them will be in the handout. So there's a couple of examples in the handout just to, again, provide examples of what I'm getting at with the general theory, but they're not what I'm going to present here today. Just to give you some background on where this idea came from the session, if you look at the standard application books, how many of you look at them and pay attention to? Callers are starting to pay attention to those books to the extent that they never call anything that isn't a standard application. And so now we've got dancers who believe that that's all there is, that that's all calls do, is the way they see it in the standard application book. When you look at those standard applications, there's some of them that are actually kind of hard. They're really not that easy. Why should girls fold peel the top be considered a standard application? Really? Peel the top from a Z is standard, but peel the top from a left-hand column is no-go? And in fact, peel the top from a left-hand column obviously is no harder. In fact, it should be easier than from a Z. So we have applications like that, which are not in and of themselves hard. It's just that dancers never see them. And because dancers never see them, they don't know how to do them. And because they don't know how to do them, we never call them. And because we never call them, the dancers never see them, and they don't know how to do them. So this vicious circle gets well established. And now we've got a bunch of easy material out there that we could use that we stay away from because we know as soon as you go there, the floor is going to falter and there's going to be lots of fallout. So what we're getting at with this session is what are some things that you can do without having to workshop and do an extensive teach so that you got the dancers standing there watching you while you're explaining the deep theory behind some call. We don't want to go there. We want something that with just a couple of additional cues takes them from what they're used to something that's a little different, and that then you can continue to use for the rest of that dance. And if you're calling to the same dancers a lot, they get used to you using this material, and they can actually get to dance it. So I'm going to start talking about Dixie Grand. How many of you use Dixie Grand? How many of you use Dixie Grand to anything other than an Allemande left? Much smaller number. So I'm going to need a square. We're going to have to do some example stuff here. So if I could have a square with lots of memorable people in it so I can keep track of corners. So Justin needs a partner.
Barry, we won't hold you to resolves.
You won't hold me to resolve. Well, actually, I wasn't planning to do a bunch of resolves because they just take time. So here's what you're used to. Head step into the middle, face your corner, or pair off if you know that call. Pass to the center. So those of you who use Dixie Grand, yeah, pass to the center is a mainstream call, so I wasn't going to plan to talk about that here. So those of you who use Dixie Grand will recognize this, right? Right? This is the quintessential standard setup for calling a Dixie Grand. We have a paired couple in the middle, and we have their corners standing behind them, right? Same sex standing behind same sex. There's lots of different ways you can mentally conceive of this setup. That happens to be the way I think of it, but you can think of it any way you like, but that's what you've got. So let's just do it so people see what happens. Dixie Grand. So you do a right, you do a left, you do a right. Everybody's looking at their corner. Element left your corner. And go back home. So the first thing that we can look at to be a little bit different, but not hard, is think about doing Dixie Grands to an element left, because how many dancers expect to be anything other than an element left? And you'll see as we get to the next part of my presentation that that is another big trick that you've got to work on. But you can do Dixie Grands in the middle of a sequence. There really is no reason they have to end with an element left. But getting the dancers over that hurdle takes a little bit of work. So where else can you do Dixie Grand from where it gives you an element left? Head step into the middle, face your corner, pass through. How many of you do it from here? So everybody starts Dixie Grand. And oh, look, you get your corner again. Take them home. So I got there in kind of a prosaic way. You wouldn't want to dance them into that position, but I'm doing that so that you can see kind of what the setup actually is, how you got there. So if you can do an element left, if you've got a zero box, you can pass through and do a Dixie Grand. Now that's kind of, you think a lot of dancers will recognize that they're looking at their corner and they'll think, well, why did you go by that element left to go to a Dixie Grand to an element left? But of course, there's lots of other ways you can develop that setup. But you have to be careful. Most dancers are not used to seeing it from there. In fact, they're not used to seeing it from anywhere where everybody starts. Some people have the mistaken impression that with a Dixie Grand, you can only start when you've got 4 people starting and then everybody continues. Not so. It's everybody who can starts. So let's look at another play. I'm going to have to go to my notes here or I'm going to forget all the stuff I was going to look at. So let's look at it, the setup from an 8-chain, what it looks like. So we did it from a trade by there. 4 ladies chain 3/4. Those in the side positions, ladies chain. And the same for lead left. Gave you body flow and everything. So this probably most people didn't follow what happened there. I stumbled on this one actually. This is one of those things where I'm pushing my checkers and some magic thing happened and I went, oh, that was kind of neat. And what I found was I had my key man on the outside with his corner. So I'll pretend Justin was my key man for now. So my key man's on the outside with his corner, and in the center, you've got an unmatched pair. Nobody's looking at anybody they know. So those of you who do the friends and enemies kind of thing will recognize that. So the way I conceive that is I've got key man with corner. I don't know anybody else that they're looking at. Dixie Grand. Right, left, right. There's corner. Take her home. So these are fairly specific get-outs. So that means you have to know how to set them up. That would be an 8-chain 3, yeah. Yeah. And in fact, I use that at the mainstream, as the mainstream get-out for that same snapshot. So Dixie Grand from there is the same as 8 chain 3, a useful thing to know. So here's another place you can do it from. 4 ladies chain 3/4. Join hands, circle left. Walk around your corner. Seesaw partner. Dixie Grand. Allemande left. Nice little routine. That one will probably actually go down more easily than some of the others just calling it cold. But again, you have to get the dancers used to the idea that they're going to get this Dixie Grand thing in setups that they're not used to, something other than that very first one that I showed you. So now let's look at some situations where we put Dixie Grand in the middle of a sequence. Now, when I sight call, I have a little handicap. That's it. I can't see sequence. I look at the square, I have no idea what the sequence is. I can figure it out eventually. But the dancers are usually standing there looking at me while I'm trying to do it. So I can't work on resolves where I have to be able to see sequence. So this is a problem when you're trying to use Dixie Grand in the middle of a sequence, because Dixie Grand turns into a circle. One of the neat things that I like about Dixie Grand is it doesn't matter where it starts from, it turns into a circle. Everybody's walking around the rim of a circle, and you immediately have circle choreography comes into play. And of course, with everybody doing circle choreography, you can't change the sequence. Everything you say just keeps the sequence whatever it was. So if you're not in sequence when you start this, then you can't get to a nice, neat Allemande left without starting to do something ugly, like talk to the heads separately or the sides separately, something like that. So you need to be a little careful about setting this kind of stuff up. So let's try this one. So you're all squared up. Everybody face your partner. Dixie Grand. Left touch a quarter to an Alamo ring. They just did it. I'm impressed. Alamo swing through. Twice. Everybody hinge by the right. Right and left grand. So that's just an example of how you can fit something like a Dixie Grand at the beginning of a sequence or in the middle of a sequence. Here's another one. Heads square through 2. Sides roll away. Pass to the center. Now this is a trick I use a lot when I'm sight calling it, because I said, remember I can't see sequence. So I've got to have some other way to talk to the dancers that lets me move some of the dancers without moving some of the other dancers. When you set it up like this, so I've got a sashayed couple in the middle and a normal couple on the outside. When I call the Dixie Grand from here, I'm going to have the sexes moving in boys. 2 boys are moving one way and 2 boys are moving the other way. Same for the girls. So the sexes will meet. That means I can talk to the sexes. And people can figure that out. Everybody Dixie Grand. Pass through with the next, finish the Dixie Grand. Now this is exactly the problem that you get into. When you call Dixie Grand and it's weird, they knew that one was weird, right? They could tell right away. They don't finish it. They figure something's coming, so they do a right and a left, and they hang on to that last right hand. And then you get unexpected results. So you have to make sure to tell them to finish the Dixie Grand. So now you're all looking at someone around the circle, aren't you? You don't have a trade by, which is what you've got there. You're actually looking at somebody around the circle. We're into circle choreography now. So pass through with the next one. Swing this girl, promenade home. Oh, you went too far? Some of you passed through already when I said pass through. But the issue is, you're meeting, when you do the pass through, now you are a girl. Yeah. Okay. Let's try it one more time so people can see it happen. So head square through 2. Sides roll away. pass to the center. Dixie Grand. And let it degenerate into a nice round circle as you do that. So there's the last hand of the Dixie Grand. Now you're all looking at somebody around the circle. Until you hear another call, you don't know what's coming. There could be all kinds of stuff coming. What kinds of calls do you think you might be able to do from here? You could, except they just did a right hand, so that's kind of ugly. But a left hand spin the top would, you know, or if you did a left Dixie Grand, you could do an all 8 spin the top. Not right away. I've found that you got to kind of work them up to that. You don't have to do a lot of workshopping, but you got to sort of gently drop the cues that this is going to be something different to what you're used to. Now the problem is you've got some boys going one way, some boys going the other way. Same for the girls. If everybody passes through with the one they're facing, pass-through is normally done with the right shoulder. You're all looking at somebody around the circle, right? Yeah, I mean the way I normally call that when I use this particular thing is right or Dixie Grand, and then as they're pulling by with the last hand, they say walk by the next, which actually is choreography they're used to hearing. I mean that's fairly common in you know the mainstream circle star dar kind of stuff to have them walk by the next, and which is the equivalent of the pass through. Now everybody should be looking at their partner, hopefully, right? No? You mean my sequence doesn't work? We're half out? Oh, that's ugly. I probably missed something. Oh, wait a minute. I see. I added some stuff to this sequence. So everybody swing this girl and promenade. So now you're all in sequence with your opposite. Okay. Join hands, circle left until you get home. Till the boys get home. 4 ladies chain across. There's all kinds of things you could do out of that. You had a circle with opposites, right? So you could have head boy and your girl wheel around, and now you've got opposite lady lines. Those of you who are into crams and stuff would know exactly what to do with that. So again, I'm not trying to show you whiz-bang get-outs here. So here's another thing you can do with that particular situation. Head square through 4, sides roll away. Pass to the center. So here we are back in that same situation. Dixie Grand. Pass through with the next one, or walk by one, whichever you like. Star through with the next one. Now look what happened when you did that. You've got one couple looking out, one couple looking in. So you can do stuff to normalize the square from that point. You can do things like have the couple looking in step forward past the ocean. And you got a nice 3/4 tag. Of course, we can do all kinds of stuff with a 3/4 tag, can't we? How many people would know what they might do with a 3/4 tag they just built that way? Well, you could set up a way to do a Dixie Grand from there. There's no reason you couldn't. It's exactly the same as the trade by setup, right? Except you got a wave in the middle, but so they got the first hand of the Dixie Grand in their hand. But you'd have to say something like everybody start Dixie Grand. They don't really have the Dixie Grand set up there. That's not where they are. But so what would I do with this? I'd do something like outside couples promenade a quarter. Center 4, spin the top. Now you got a quarter tag. You can do something with that, right? Ping pong circulates and all kinds of neat stuff. Square your sets. So the key is when you're going to do something unusual like this that develops one of these weird things in the circle, you got to have some way to get out of it relatively easily. And a lot of the reluctance that we as callers have to explore some of these different usages is that it generates something that is different to what we're used to. And we think, well, what the hell do I do with that? You know, if I build this thing, sure, I can get into it using a relatively easy usage of a call, but then I get this thing that I have to deal with. So it behooves us to sit down with our checkers and work our way through the solutions to those, and then you've got them in your kit bag. Let's try one more. So head square through 4, sides roll away, pass to the center. You know this routine now. Dixie Grand. Walk by the next one, star through. Couple looking in past the ocean, the other's California twirl, and there's our quarter tag thing again. Okay, square your sets. That was just another way out of that. So here's another setup you can use that gives you the ability to talk to the sexes. Head couples pass through, separate around 1, squeeze in, make lines of 4, pass through, wheel and deal, Dixie Grand. Now, here's when you get brave, you figure if you went to the workshop that was just before this one, extended but not extreme mainstream, you might have worked on slide through. I don't know if they did or not. But one of the things I do a lot with floors is work on slide through, because all the way up to about C2, they can't slide through with a dam. Try calling a slide through from here. Go ahead, slide through. You should get one couple looking in and one couple looking out. So again, you can do these tricks, those facing in past the ocean, the other's California twirl, and you got a nice neat quarter tag again. So square your sets. I'm not going to try and call you out of there. So that just gives you some impressions of things that you can do with something as simple as Dixie Grand that we use in this very, very rudimentary, trite kind of way all the time, but it's a call that you can actually get a lot of mileage out of. The key to remember is it turns into a circle. So you can do neat things like do a Dixie Grand to a single circle to a wave, and we've got a thar. And then you can do things in the thar. As you saw, we can do star throughs and slide throughs and things to make certain kinds of circles. You can get circles facing out if you set it up the right way. So there's lots of neat things that you can do with it, but you just have to do a little pre-planning. So I've talked long enough, I think, on that example, so I'll turn it over to John now. Thanks for the square. Are you going to need them right away? Well, let's have this square sit down, and maybe we can recruit some new people, so you're not all standing here the whole time.
My name is Justin Russell. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. This question's not for me, but another caller asked it. On Dixie style, right, left, right to a single circle, it's still the same way, even though the left hand's free?
Yeah, well, you've just done a right hand. The thing with single circle is it's actually two hands, right? So if you've just done any kind of pull by, a single circle isn't too comfortable.
Okay, I'll tell the other guy.
But you could do and single veer left.
Well, or along that same line, if you would have said to the dancers after that last hand pull by, pass the next with the left. It's those that are concerned with that, the body flow and the hand usage, that's one way to get there using English. It won't help you a lick in Japan. It won't help you, not a hoot, right? A couple things I wanted to mention about what Barry was doing, especially some of the more unusual ones. We need to develop trust with the dancers as quickly as you can. If it's your home group, hopefully you've all long ago developed that. But if you're calling elsewhere for people that don't know you, you need to ease into these things and build as much trust with that floor as you possibly can before you start asking a lot more from them. And of course, obviously, Barry's not proposing all those things would happen in one tip or even two. It would take a fair amount of time to lead into that with people that don't know you. There's another element about difficulty. The moment we put dancers in a starting spot that they're not used to being in, you have automatically increased the difficulty. Right out of the boot, no matter what you've called, you've put them somewhere where they're not used to being. This makes it harder. And if you leave them there a little too long, they're going to fix it for you. It's like all you need is to do is have the wrong people turn around and make it look right. So watch out for that. Develop your trust best you possibly can, but recognize that when there are places they've not seen before, It's harder. When we do, I'm a big believer in starting dancers when I'm being creative, starting in different geographic locations in the square. I like to use as an example, and if we get time to do it, we can talk about some of these, but I like crossfire as a good example. So often it's called from parallel right-handed two-face lines with boys on the end. That's the most common called spot. But how many places can you find in the square where you can set the dancers up and have that same identical action? Could you have the heads, for example, I'll say it quickly, past the ocean, recycle, veer left. Right? So now we have a right-hand two-face line in the middle, boys on the ends, girls in the center. So there's one. You put a right-handed tidal line on each side of the square. Boys cross fold to the right, girls trade and extend. Same thing. Keep looking for different places. You'll find a lot of spots in the square. What about in that tidal two-face line? Change the handedness of it so that it's a left-hand two-face on each side. The center four could do it while you give the outsides something else to do. That's another issue. If we have a four-person call that we're directing, let's make sure we give the other dancers something to do other than to stand there and stare. Unless you need them to see what's coming before their turn shows up, in which case it's a good idea to let them watch. Right? That's it. You automatically turn one of your part of your group into a demo group, and that will work for you. So those are important things. There's another thing that I think is important to us. When we're wandering into newer territory, be very aware when you're pushing your checkers what your ending formations are going to be, and knowing how to get out of those quickly to normalize. If it is different, a little unusual, and you have some breaking down, you want to resolve the floor as quickly as you can. One of the things that I think is hard for us when we put on our choreographic thinking caps is to think simple. We seem to automatically start looking at the whole apple at once, and we're going to try to swallow it and make everything right in one shot. And I'm not sure that's necessarily doable in many cases, and not necessarily desirable even from the dancer's standpoint, because that is often much more complicated than looking for the simple, easy way to normalize the square. So be aware when you're going to start looking at different starting formations for calls. Whatever you're going to do, how do you get out of it? Quickly and simply. Later on, you can make it harder if you want to. You can become, you can go off the reservation, I think is Brian Clark's frame of reference for that. So I do need a square, if at all possible. I could appreciate that. If you get a square up, I'd like to show you some things with you, share them with you. It won't be nasty, guys, I promise. It's okay. And besides, those of you that are starting to fall asleep, please get up now. We know it's late in the day. There's, at least half the group that's thinking about a nap, and then there's that, other part of the group that's thinking about a cocktail, So, yeah, we'll try to keep things along. The call I want to work with for now is AC-doocy. Can we have the head step in, turn, face your corner, please? Step to an ocean wave. Swing through. From here is very often the most commonly called AC-doocy, and circulate, centers, trade. Now, I would point out, if you're going to get creative with AC-doocies, you need to know what circulates do. Really important. Circulate is probably one of the hardest calls in square dancing, and knowing that part is really important. Very often you'll see the callers call a swing through and then an AC-doocy right behind it, as I just did. Some callers will tell you that's overflow for the boys, having just traded and now trading again. Other callers will tell you that they think 4 quarter rotations is okay. Anything over that is not. It's a judgment call, especially when you look at the third call, because you got to be really careful then. Because you end up doing the swing through, you do the AC-doocy, and then call a circulate, and you're running some people in circle. So watch for that. But this is a pretty much standard one. Boys, run right. Thank you. We can call it from here, and we often do. AC-doocy, please. Still no problems there. We're all good. I've not gotten anywhere off the reservation even a little bit. let's talk about doing this one. Let me ask, how do I want to do this? Tag the line, please. Everybody face out. I'll call AC-deuces from here, particularly if I'm comfortable with boy-boy trades. Otherwise, I would set it up so that the center boy had a girl on his right, so that that partner trade is more common. But if you would, please, AC-deuce. Let's have the ends pass through. Same situation. We now have inverted lines. AC-deuce. Everybody hinge. AC-deuce. Now, I'm not going to fractionalize. I'm not going to be doing ones and halves unless you really want to see some of those. Right now, let's work with what we have, okay? All right. Let me ask the, good to see we're working at plus, how we can do that. Girls chase right. Down the middle. Thank you. Good. Come on in. Here we go. Good. So again, you notice I have the ends facing in. Centers now have the right hand common trade, more common trade. So we can do an AC-deuce from here. Please do that. Straight ahead, gentlemen. That's your circulate action, right? Centers cross run. There you go. Thank you. All right, here we go from here. AC-deuce. All right. All 8 circulate. So how do we want to get out of this? You know, we don't see a lot of 3-in-1 lines at plus usually. There are some simple ways that are a little bit cleaner, particularly if your dancers will work same sex. It's easier to talk gender quite often, and I have that now, but I could have the center boy again with a girl on his right, which would be more common. But let's have the boys chase right, girls circulate, so they're not standing around waiting. Times out well. We've now converted our 3-in-1 to 2-face lines. We're in good shape here. Everybody tag the line, please. Face right. So as the popular saying goes, let's dig a little deeper. Girls hinge. How many centers are there in the square? There are 4 centers in the square. The 4 girls are centers right now. They're all standing on the center line of the square. If I call an AC-deuce from here, I expect the 4 men to circulate in the large box around the outside of the square and the girls to trade with a right hand. We're drifting off of the reservation. When I call this to the dancers and I'm workshopping an AC-deuce, I would tell the girls, squeeze your right hand gently. You're going to be using that in the next call. AC-deuce. They'll trade with the right, again, recognizing centers and ends. That's not a real common AC-deuce, folks. We're starting to get the edge of that reservation now.
And if I could just make an editorial comment, what is actually hard about that? Right? The 4 centers are really obvious. 4 outsides are really obvious. It's just that we never do it. How long would it take to train our dancers to recognize AC-deuce from here? It's not something, I'm not saying that this is something that you could do quickly. Like as John was saying, this would turn into a workshop to get them to hear. Mm-hmm. It's not something you could just sort of quickly urge them through. You'd have to kind of explain, just as he did, you know, girls are the 4 centers. But my question is, why is it that when we're teaching dancers, we don't teach them this as one of the positions that AC-deuce is logical from? Because it works really well. Now, one caveat, if you're going to call this and there's advanced dancers on the floor, you won't get what you want.
No, they'll do a 6x2.
They'll do a
right?
6-2.
Yep. But let me comment, too, on this. Another way you might look at it, in the parallel waves, parallel 2-face lines, you had 2 people in the center trading. They're used to that. I have 2 people in the center on each diamond who are trading. Their centers of their diamond, they could trade. Now then you begin to say, well, where did the boys go? But of course this is why the call is an 8-person call and they're all moving around the outside. Do a diamond circulate, please. Good. Has a very center 2 boys trade. Those 2 boys run right. You notice I specified very center 2. So again, I'm differentiating between the center 4. That helps the dancers see that. Well, here we are again, folks. I got 4 centers. They don't happen to have right hands. They'll be doing partner trades rather than arm trades. And we need to warn them before you show them this. You know, you don't just call it. Just because the girls did a right-hand trade doesn't mean the boys are going to be any easier right now. You know, they'll fumble on this, so you need to remind them. Fellas, your centers, your trade is a partner trade, not an arm trade. Girls, you're doing the circulate for the first time now this afternoon around the outside of the square. All right, ace-deuce, 4 girls, big box around the outside. All right, good. Here we go. Step up, dear. You're fine. A little further for me, hon. Thank you very much. Well, wardrobe malfunction. Don't look. Too late. Oh, jeez. Okay. All right. So let's talk about something else now. We need to get out of this, right? Let's not forget about that. We're trying to get out of this bad boy. All right. So, Randy, give me a good, quick, easy way to normalize, or relatively so. Okay. Don't do it yet, guys. Can you see that? Left half tag. I think left half tag, this is already hard enough for them, right? Left half tags are not real common. I love it. And I can set that up into a left half tag to a right and left grand. It'd be very cool. I'm sure Randy would do that too. I've danced to him. Right? However, I want to get out even quicker. Boys, bend the line. That's a lot more obvious. And it leaves you in a little bit more user-friendly spot. I would have preferred, from dance flow, I would have much preferred to have called the boys cast off 3/4. It would have been a push cast, and have the girls circulate at the same time. Or we had the boys bend the line, girls turn in, just quarter in, girls just turn to the right, boys square through 2. So we're quickly coming back to something that we recognize. Again, I'm using all this in same gender type situations. Yeah, girls, you would automatically touch hands. You'd breathe together. That's a good thing. One more. Touch a quarter, please. Do a left swing through. Boy trade. Boy run right. There we go. Good. I want to back up a little bit, not so close to the reservation now. Wheel and deal, please. Square through 3. I warn the dancers the first time I do this. Remember your definition. Ace-deuce. So the centers had to trade. That was no problem. The real issue was the outside dancers facing out. What's a circulate from there? Many plus dancers have never seen a circulate from there. And that's something that you need to show them. That's not something they would automatically see. Everybody pass through. Trade by. Pass through. Ace-deuce. Good. Now you notice, folks, I haven't talked at all about rolls with this call, nor spreads with this call. You know, you have a wealth of material with one call, but we need to know how to get out of those things. Please veer left, since we don't have any action motion right now. Good. Couple circulate for me, please. I'm not going to help them. Tag the line 3/4. Ace-deuce. There's that center 4 again, you see. All right? But you all are professional callers, so I wasn't worried. I knew you'd get it. Right? Extend. Hinge. Extend. Ace-deuce. Outsides roll. Got it? You ready? I would help the dancers at this point. Centers rear back a little bit, and everybody load the boat. Centers turn out. Centers out. Out, and then partner trade, and then pass through. Or ace-deuce, whichever comes first, or teacup chain, whichever comes quicker, right? Yeah.
I think we've ventured into extreme there.
Exactly, exactly. But let's talk about that for a minute. Barry just said we ventured into the extreme. Of course he is, because had we been talking anything about load the boats, had we been talking about any unusual stories? Of course we hadn't. But let's do this. Have the heads do a partner trade and roll. Have the sides pass the ocean. Okay. Now, let me ask you to do this. Center 4, I should have done it this way. Center 4, back up, get nose to nose with just partner right now. All right. How would you feel? In fact, I'll make it even easier. Center's boxing that. So you're nose to nose, toes to toes, all the other good parts in between. Okay. So from here, if I call load the boat, centers, you'll be much more successful because after you do your pass through and face out, it feels what you're most used to. All right. But we can load the boat from here. We're not talking fractions, but if you step into that right-hand wave, if you would please. Good. Now you notice I gave you a little helper thing. I said rear back a little bit if it helps you, and it'll help you even more because of this particular starting point. So rear back a little more in the middle, rear back a little bit, and everybody load the boat. Centers pass through, turn out, notice, partner trade, pass through. Good. They did a lovely job, didn't they? You guys should not have been laughing at them before. Your turn could be coming up, right? So let's talk about this for a minute. We all agree that the center four dancers are still in the middle of the square and not on the outside? Please say yes. Because they are, right? We've decided, we've activated those people. They were in the middle. They're still in the middle. I don't know if I want to go down this road or not. I'm not sure I have the nerve. Shall I? I'm going to move off of the AC-doocies for now. There are other AC-doocies. If we have time, we'll come back to them. But again, being aware of all the things I've talked about as we go. I'm going to take a shot at this. We'll see how it works out. Split circulate. Centers had to flip away from each other, and they're now facing on the ends. And you're facing here. You were right. All right. All right. Step up on the outside so you get your shoulder next to the inside. There you go. Right. Right. Circulates and split circulates are a lot harder when we start doing from these kinds of formations. This is really getting off the reservation, in my opinion, at plus. And I would not expect plus fours to do this. It would be a major workshop, and it would not necessarily even be a comfortable workshop. However, do an AC-doocy. End circulate, centers trade. Now, outside, you should have been back-to-back after your pass-through. You would be back-to-back on the outside. Bumper to bumper. There you go. I knew I'd find the right term. Okay. All right. Do 1/2 of a split circulate. And center outside's just step forward, hook on the end, you're done. Okay. Enough of that. I don't really want to go there. I don't want to go there. Have all the centers run around the ends. How we doing? You guys still okay? You feeling all right? You looking pretty good. All right. Let's have the centers touch quarter. You don't always find yourself in this kind of a formation, but, you know, if you do, this is another place for an AC-doocy, but we'll add the roll in to help normalize quickly. Everybody do an AC-doocy, centers roll. Okay, so you're facing in the middle. All right, now you could have done AC-doocy twice because we've been here before, right? I'm not doing it, but we could. All right, let's have the ends fold behind the centers. Very good. Double pass through. AC-doocy. You guys are getting really good on that outside circulate, aren't they? You know, you look good on that. Now, let's have the center four past the ocean. Have the outsides face in. Okay? AC-doocy. Outsides are back-to-back. All they did was a pass-through. So let's talk about a quick way to normalize this to something we feel comfortable with. Anybody? One comment was the center's pass-through. That certainly would normalize this pretty quickly. I was thinking about have the outsides fold. Yeah. And you, of course, you'll touch hands, obviously, because you know right where you are then. Right? We're touching hands on the outside. Right? Yeah. Okay. So now we have the quarter tag situation, and that's a quick way to normalize. Okay. Extend. Split circulate. 1.5. AC-doocy. Outsides are circulating. There you go. Good. Center four dancers do a linear cycle. Have the outside girl do a U-turn back. Everybody got a line looking in. We feel a little better now, kind of quickly, using calls from our Plus program. So these are the kinds of things that I ask you to look at when you are working new things, trying to be creative but not ridiculous. And you need to take them through it a step at a time, because a lot of these things I've shown you, I'd never expect to do them all in one shot, you know, even in one night. Just take this stuff, workshop it over a period of time. Use it, you know, work it into your singing call figures. That's also another good tool. I'm pretty well done here. Another call. We have another minute or two, Barry. I think we're okay on time. I thought we went to 5. 5:15? Okay. Slide through. Double pass through. Okay. We all know the call peel off, and this is where it's done most of the time. Unless you're used to having same sexes in front and trailers, right? Leader trailers. This is an important issue, by the way. I'll veer off for just a moment. Your dancers need to learn to recognize whether they are leaders or trailers, centers and ends. Think about the AC-doocy. Centers are trading, ends are circulating. They need to know who they are. That's something they should practice, or you should give them drills on, in my opinion, even before they get to plus at all, if at all possible. Would you do a peel off, please? Pass through. I want to show this the simplest way. Do a wheel and deal and double pass through. The way I teach the call peel off is by painting a mental map. I explained it to the dancers initially as we have an imaginary line on the floor, and it runs from where I'm standing to the back of the hall. We're going to make that line red today. And the lead dancers, and I know Randy uses a similar thing he uses different colors, as I remember, Randy, from a previous panel we did together. Gold and silver? You told me chartreuse, you lying dog, you. All right. Imaginary line running from the front of the hall to the back of the hall. It's behind the boys. It's in front of the girls. Because on a peel off, the people involved, the leaders and the trailers, are going to end up sharing that same line. The lead people are going to turn away from one another and step up onto that line. The trailing dancers are going to step up onto that line, turn away from each other. You'll all be occupying, sharing the same line, and the square will move kind of forward to adjust. Peel off. This is the one we know good, right? Okay. Do me a favor, please. Everybody do a partner trade and roll. Pass to the center. Don't forget your trade, boys. Thank you. All right. Now, I've changed the axis to the square, so the line has to be a different color. The line's going through the sides now, and we'll make that a blue line. All right, it's behind the girls. It's in front of the boys. Many of you call peel off from here? I'll bet not. Not very often. Well, if I work it this way, I can ask the girls, you're the leaders, the line is behind you. You have to end up on the end of that line. Boys, you have to step up on the line, and again, turning away from one another, you'll be sharing the line. Peel off. Very nice. Bend the line. Pass through. How do I want to show you this way? Can't do that. Half tag, please. Boys run around the girls. Everybody do a left touch quarter. Good. What color is the line? Red. It's from the front of the hall to the back of the hall. It's behind the boys and in front of the girls. So the leaders of the boys, they're looking out of the box. They're going to peel to become the end of the line. Girls, you're going to step onto the line, turn away from each other. Like all the other peel-offs, you'll be sharing the line with the boys. Peel off. Didn't take long. It doesn't take long. And I bet most of you aren't calling peel-offs from left or right-handed columns or from beginning double pass-throughs. Paint them a mental map, show them where it is, and get them out quick. Bend the line. Do a left touch a quarter. I like using the left one first because more often than not, boys especially are used to going to the right more often. But this peel off is away from the center. All right, peel off, chain down the line. So the hands are right there, nice and smooth, very nice. I think that's enough for what I have at the moment. I've got stuff on crossfires and some other items on scootbacks. But, let me ask you to fill in at this point a little bit, and then I'll come back if we have time. Yes, questions, please, comments. Ted. Al, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you need the dancers now, or can they sit?
I think I do. Hi, Jeff. Okay. Al Roth, Worcester, Massachusetts, caller. The peel-off description that you use, I agree with, but there's something in the definitions that's a problem for me. When you have the dancers end on that center line of their box, you automatically are enlarging the size of the square beyond what it should normally be. Because those center dancers, before they stepped up onto the line, they had the spacing of one spot between them.
Yeah.
And when they finished the peel-off, now they have the spacing of 1.5 spots. It seems like there ought to be an adjustment that's automatically added at the end.
There is, and actually I said that. I actually said that.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I did say a comment on they'll
Did
move
you
back
say that?
together. You know, because of the square being apart. I said they'll adjust back together. That's what I
Okay,
said.
so it's like file to a
Yeah,
line.
it's a breathing exercise. The square breathes.
Is that in the
Go out
definition?
for it. Probably
I have not seen it.
But, you know, for example, think about this. If we have the dancers in parallel ocean waves and we call swing through it and then we call spin the top. There's
Right,
not,
that spreads them out, yeah.
Exactly. There's no room for four dancers in the middle.
Right.
What happens is the square breathes to accommodate out, but it also, the next call may very well have them breathe back in.
Okay, so at the end of that call, they are expected to adjust.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Anyone else, comments or questions before we let these four folks sit down for a minute, unless Barry needs them? Randy, please. It wasn't me. I didn't say it. For the record, it was not me.
Randy Doherty, pass the ocean, would you, please? Swing through. And I'm going to set them up for our normal, like the peel the top setup. So the girls fold, but we're not going to do a peel the top. Girls fold, and that gives you the Z.
Go ahead, girls. There you go.
The problem is that I have trying to train my dancers is they think about this imaginary line. I think it would be 2 red lines, according to you right now. Is the red line between the guy and the girl? Or is the red line in the axis of the men? And that's the hard part to explain to new dancers. How do you train and how do you teach other callers to make a big deal out of this?
I do it as, again, the leader trailer. The line's behind the leader and in front of the trailer.
No, I disagree.
Why is that?
The Z, the boy has to do nothing more than to slide apart this time and turn away, and the girl has to step up on the line.
I see.
And then she turns away. And that's the important part. And I'm wondering if you have a trick or Barry has a trick to try to get people to understand that.
To be honest with you, I don't, but I haven't run into the problem. That's probably why I don't have an issue or a trick for you, because I've not run into it. Maybe Barry has.
Have you got a...
Well, my trick is I don't teach it that way. So, could I just have everybody extend to a left-hand column here? By the way, you could peel the top from here, couldn't you?
Absolutely.
Just this sort of gets into the next thing I was going to touch on. So thanks for setting that up. I'll just briefly touch on it before I answer your question.
He says that now.
If you want to get them used to the idea of doing a peel the top from somewhere other than this Z thing, which is exactly where they're used to doing it. In fact, a lot of times when you call girls fold from there, if you don't say something else really quick, you're going to get a peel the top. But if from there you say, now everybody take a little step forward, make a left-hand column, now peel the top. Go ahead, peel the top. It wasn't a peel off, it was a peel the top.
Top. Move up, guys.
So you got to work them into a little more than I did there. But the fact is, because the left-hand column setup they were in is so similar to that Z, and they saw how they got there. They saw I was in the Z, I know what to do, and I just took a little step forward, so I'm going to do the same thing. That kind of preconditions them to be able to execute the fan the top from a left-hand column. So now you can set them up in left-hand columns in different ways. Make sure you put the boys in the lead and the girls trailing, or that will be different again. So now let's just, to answer Randy's question. Randy, I knew I knew your name. Everybody explode the wave. And the centers pass through. So when I start working with peel-off, I don't even talk about lines and stuff like this. Right? I didn't go there. Put centers in. Now you can see there's this huge area in here. When I'm teaching my dancers centers in, I tell them, you got to breathe that back. You actually have to back up and make facing lines. So they get used, or lines back to back. They get used to the idea that they've got to breathe that real estate back out of there when they make that kind of a square adjustment. And normally, of course, if we were doing mainstream, it would be a cast off 3/4 here That's something else I do a lot of. I don't do a cast-off 3/4 after center's in. I do something else. But since I taught that at mainstream, got them used to that, after the center's in, I say, everybody away from the center of your line, you turn back. Individually, you turn back, but in the direction away from your line, to the center of your line. That's a peel-off. And they've gotten used to the idea that they got to, it's turned a box into a line, and fine, everybody's lined up in the original center line of the box, but you got to breathe everything back together. I found, for me anyway, I find the line idea kind of confusing. By the time, and that's just the way my brain works, right? When I try to figure out, okay, the line is going this way and it's gold, right? And by the time I figured all that out, it's too late. And then when you get to the situation where you're trying to do the peel off out of a Z, because you can do peel off and not just peel the top out of the Z, then that line thing breaks down, right? Because if you adhere to the idea that you're going to settle on that line that's in between the leader and the trailer, now you've got a couple of disconnected couples, and you've got a C3 split phantom line kind of thing, and you don't really want to go there. So how tired are you guys? You're fine? Pass through with a wheel and deal. Actually, let's not go here. Well, no, we can go here. Boys, you're all the boys in the center, right? Boys, pass through, touch a quarter, follow your neighbor and spread. Did they take that off the list? Everybody hinge, girls trade, swing through. Now, I didn't even watch how you're squared up, so this isn't going to resolve. But the next step beyond, girls fold, peel the top, and trying to extend the peel the top a little bit is, what else could you do after you do girls fold except peel the top? Well, you could peel off, but that's kind of derivative at this point. We don't want to go there. And here's a little trick. Took me a little while to figure it out. Girls fold. So here's your Z's. And I this really puzzles me. This formation can only be described at C3. I can call two Z's. Z's are C3B. And yet we use this at plus, and we kind of expect the dancers to know what it's all about. So you've got this setup now. And how the hell do you get out of that any other way? You could do that. I found an even simpler way. Single file promenade. Instant circle. Now, I wasn't watching how you were set up, but if you set it up right, you can do things like, girls U-turn back, swing your partner, promenade home, that kind of stuff. Because once you create that circle, you're golden, right? As long as you've got sequences and stuff, you can stop promenading.
So the question remains then for Barry at this point, the question remains is, how do you teach peel the top?
How do I teach peel the top?
That's funny. I asked the same thing.
I actually start teaching peel the top from left-hand columns. So the first thing they see is I usually do a left touch a quarter from sashayed facing lines, and then do a column circulate, because that gives you some, cancels all the bad body flow from the touch a quarter that some people would get if you just did the peel the top from there. Puts the boys in the lead and the girls are the trailers. So that is the common position that they're used to. But it means that they don't start out with the assumption that you got to have this weird setup to start. So for them, when they get the singing call figure that's got the girls fold, peel the top, they're puzzled by that, not by the left-hand column thing. Before I even show them the girls fold, peel the top variation in a singing call, I'll do right-hand columns, and I'll get them used to the idea that you can peel both ways. And I'll also change leaders and trailers. That's when I'm teaching. But I know that when I'm calling to a strange floor, people that I don't know, that you can't go there, right? If you don't have the boys in the lead and the girls trailing and it's not left-handed, it ain't ever going to happen. Am I right, Randy? You got to do a lot of talking. You got to do a lot of talking to get them through that. So in the context we're talking about here, which is extreme, but what was it? I've forgotten already. It's 5 o'clock. Extended, but not extreme. You got to stick to the left-hand setup. Randy? I don't know.
Are they squared up? Go ahead and get squared up. This is a test. Heads lead right and veer left. When I'm teaching my peels, I don't use the red line, the blue line, the silver line. I always talk about leaders, trailers, and the box. Okay? And usually I base the peel off with the zoom action. I tell them for the leaders it feels like a half a zoom. So once you get them doing that kind of thought process, you should be able to do peel off from here if you know who the leaders are and who the trailers are and how far is that line between you and the people in front or back. This should end up on the red line for John if he was teaching it. You're all going to be on a title with same sex. Everyone peel off. Poor judgment on my part. Okay, so you're the leader. You're the leader. All the leaders have to be ends of a line. You're going to be the very center of a title, but you're going to be the end of a line that's out of this box. They're the trailers. They're supposed to meet you half the distance. So I have them do half a couple circulate. Would you do that, Ron, with your girl? There's the center line that you're on. Now both of you turn away from each other and you're done. And then you're going to peel and become the very center. No, you're going to be the center. You're going to be the end, and you're going to be the end. Once I get my dancers seeing that box and measuring the distance, half the distance, then I go back and then I try to do that Z setup. Okay? Let's see if this box can do it. Peel off. Peel away. And you're done. Each line of 4, bend your little bitty line. Star through. Are you the girl? Leaders wheel around. All right. Are you close to home? Circle left? I don't know.
So, Randy, again, for my edification, how does that help you with the peel the top from the Z?
Because I talk about the X and the Y axis. I go into geometry. Mm-hmm. And if they can see the X and the Y axis, sometimes people are on one axis and sometimes it's half the distance between them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It helps me. Yeah, Bob. Yes. On the breathing.
The question is related to when you're in the two-face line and you're doing the peel off from there, the breathing of the square is probably the most important part of that, to get that four opposite 4 to line.
Okay. Can I make one other comment? Okay. This was on the Dixie Grand that Barry did, and this is the extreme, but I use this as a get out. I want to get to a right-hand lady line, half-size shade in sequence. Can you guys do that quick? No, I didn't think so. Okay. So head square through 2. Is this your right-hand lady, gang? Slide through. Are you in sequence? No. You're out of sequence. I want you to be in sequence. Do a right and left through. And I also want you to be half-size shade. So here's my get in. It's a right-hand lady line, half-size shade. In sequence. All right. Centers, left square through 4. The ends, alley man right. Everybody find your right-hand lady by the left Dixie Grand 2/3, and then face in and you're home.
Yeah. When I do that one, Randy, I have them slide through on that third hand. I have them slide through on the third hand at home. Yeah.
It won't be a slide through on the third hand, John.
Did you pull
It's
by
a
first?
left Dixie Grand, so it's a left and then a right.
Right.
So on the second hand, it would be a slide through.
There you go. All right. I want to mention that without a doubt, the two-face line peel off, that's off the reservation, sports fans.
However,
let me tell you, that is off the reservation.
Could I show you something that isn't so much off the reservation? Yeah. Heads past the ocean, extend, and hinge. Everybody follow your neighbor. Please refrain from spreading. That's the new call we've added to the list because you can't just call follow your neighbor anymore. Now, just think about what Randy was just doing. Okay, you ready, girls? Girls, peel off. Okay.
They're on the red line.
That is not something that the average plus floor is going to do for you normally, right? They're not used to doing peel-offs from there. Again, my question is, why? If they know how to peel off, that should be easy. But it is definitely something that it's beyond really what we're talking about in this context. Now, another reason you don't see this very much is because look what you got. What the hell do I do with that?
May I venture?
Okay.
Before you move them?
Sure.
See, I was heading in that direction a while ago. I wanted this same peel off. It's perfect. You did that. We'll tie it into the next piece, which is the 4 boys peel the top. The lead boy peel away.
Peel would be to your left because that was away. Yeah.
Right. So we now have a tidal line, and now it might be easier to find something to do from there. But we'll put them back. Should I put them back?
Yeah, put them back where they were.
Back where you were, guys. You had a left-hand box.
Just make a left-hand box in the middle. Or a right-hand box, I don't really care.
Yeah, right.
So, again, the reason that a lot of callers shy away from doing something like that is because you get this thing, and what the hell do I do with that thing? And back to John's point is that often it's something very simple that you can do. We tend to think, especially once you start, getting into the choreographic puzzle mindset, well, I got to do something sophisticated and complicated. But often the way out is something really simple, like girls, wrong way promenade a quarter, boys walk and dodge. And boom, you got something, quote, normal. How many of you call slide through from a setup like this? And what kind of success would you expect on the average plus floor? So that is something that, should be easy for a plus floor. My experience is all the way up, even onto some C2 floors, you call a slide through from here, you get random 3-in-1 lines. And then you got to figure out how you're going to get out of it. But the good news about that is it gives you a lot of stuff to play with when you're calling. Because it's easy to tell the dancers what they're going to get after that. But that's actually material for the mainstream section of this. What I wanted to point out, everybody touch a quarter. Girls trade. Everybody hinge. Now I want you to watch the body flow on this. Girls, you're going to get this peel off again. But hopefully when we do it all in one motion, it should feel kind of natural. Everybody follow your neighbor. Girls peel off. I mean, they're practically right there. Did it not feel good for you? So it doesn't feel that great when they're stumbling through it, right? Like when they're not sure what they're doing. But once they've got the action down, that's a really nice, slick little module. So I saw a hand somewhere. Anybody have a question? No? How much time have we got? We got 5 minutes. Why don't you guys have a seat? Thank you very much.
Nice hand for the dancers.
Thank you very much for your service. We look at one thing. You want to keep the square to do one thing? Can we get some volunteers for Jeff to get an opinion?
No, I can dance. Well, you can dance. We need a square though.
Need a whole square?
Please.
Somebody jump up real quick. It's going to be fast. He won't keep you up. We only got 4 minutes.
I know this will be fast. Let's see here. All right. Let's just have the head step in the middle, face out, slide through, touch a quarter. I'm going to ask you to do a coordinate, but the center boys after you trade don't move up. Okay, so coordinate. Let's do that. And I would have done a crossfire first before this. Then I want the end boy to circulate to the far end next to the girl. Circulate to the far end next to the girl. Everybody crossfire. Trade and extend, center, the other move up. And your column's right back. Just something quick and not too dirty. So, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
That's what we should have named this session, extended but not too hairy.
So we have a couple of minutes. Questions, comments, observations, anything? Did you have anything else, Barry? Really? I've got more.
I've got probably like another half hour I could
me
do,
too.
but we don't really want to go there.
We don't have it. Yeah, we don't have the time. If we're done, thank you so much for coming in. Have a nice hand for Barry Clasper.
We'll see you at the banquet tonight.
Thank you, folks.